Tales of the Jedi is out. 6 total shorts, 3 about Ahsoka Tano and 3 about Dooku. About an hour and 20 minutes total of new story, so yes, they are short, but they all work well together to explore what it means to be a Jedi, even though they're all about people who eventually left the Order, so it's cool to see the stories told in parallel. Before I get into the episodes themselves, and therefore spoilers, my initial reaction to them was that they're all good, but I really loved the Dooku stuff. Ahsoka Tano is a character we have spent a lot of time with. There's always going to be more to learn about characters, and I still enjoyed her episodes, especially because they were thematically linked to the Dooku episodes. That all made sense to me, and they all work well together, like I said. But man, the Dooku stuff was cool to see, because we haven't spent nearly as much time with him, especially while he was a Jedi. Basically, I thought the Ahsoka stuff was fine, and the Dooku stuff was great. I could see this project being a little something to maybe encourage fans of Star Wars live action to dip their toes into animation. It's releasing in the middle of Andor, it's a short time commitment, it's got 2 characters familiar to live action, fans who just met Ahsoka in The Mandalorian might be intrigued to learn more about her, and then the Dooku stories are included for fans who already know her well and want to learn something new. The animation is on par with the later scenes of the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch, meaning it's very good. Kevin Kiner's music is superb as usual. Tales of the Jedi is easily worth 80 minutes of your time, so go watch it, because now I'm going to dive into the individual episodes, spoilers included. The first short, Life and Death, is about the birth and early years of Ahsoka. We get to meet her mother and her father and her village and the most adorable little dog-like creatures I've ever seen. Ahsoka's mother, Pavti, takes her on a hunt to teach her about, well, life and death. Her mother shows her the wonders of nature and explains that all life must be valued, but this is a hunt, and Pavti shoots an antelope-like creature called a Kaibuk. She urges Ahsoka not to fear death and to face it because it is a natural part of life itself, just as Yoda tries to explain to Anakin many years later, but way too late. The death of the Kaibuk means Pavti's family and tribe will be fed, but they ensure they don't take more than they need. They keep balance in their environment, but living in balance has its dangers, because what I would assume to be the apex predator of the planet is on a hunt of its own, and takes baby Ahsoka back to its lair. I'm going to cheat a bit here, because Dave Filoni spoke about this moment on the Tales of the Jedi panel at Star Wars Celebration. Ahsoka faces the creature, places a hand on its nose, and then it takes her back to the village. Dave proposed the question, was she using the Force, or was she simply not afraid? And really, what's the difference? Obviously, you shouldn't run around booping the snoots of predators expecting to survive the encounter, but so many of humanity's darker impulses are driven by fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of what we don't understand, but confronting fear and not allowing it to control your actions leads towards harmony. The apex predator is big and scary and angry, but it's not evil. If you meet someone you don't understand, not with fear, but with understanding, you can find balance and harmony. I do think Ahsoka was using the Force in-universe, to be clear. I think she took in the lessons Pavti wanted to teach her, despite her very young age, and her lack of fear meant the Force flowed through her freely. It matches with other infants we've seen instinctually floating toys around on their own. Where Ahsoka's first episode begins, surrounded by nature and life, the first Dooku episode, Justice, is the complete opposite. A dead forest, a run-down village, and even another dog-like creature, but this one feral and starving. What happens when life is pulled out of balance? And surprise, surprise, it's all because of a person who takes more than he needs. Senator Dagonet, who shares a name with one of King Arthur's knights of legend. He's usually shown to be a cowardly fool, but there are some stories that depict him as being one of Arthur's best knights who loses his way. Senator Dagonet is said to be one of the longest-standing senators of the Republic. His people think he may have once had their best interests in mind, but his actions and his greed led to the downfall of their world. So they kidnapped the senator's son in a demand for change, and even he agrees they had no other choice. He and his father lived their lives in the capital or on Coruscant. The senator's policies surely serve his own interests at the cost of his people. Once the younger Dagonet learns of the suffering of the people, he sides with them. Like Ahsoka and the creature or the Rodian child floating his toy, younger people have a better connection to their sense of right and wrong. But if it's a muscle you don't exercise as you grow up, it becomes easier and easier to lose that. Like Ahsoka says in The Mandalorian, the Force will fade if someone stops connecting with it. Unfortunately, the senator arrives to take his son back through threats and violence. I love seeing Dooku at this point. When the senator says the Jedi serve the Senate, he corrects him and says, "No, we serve the people of this republic." There is a big difference between the two, but we see in the rest of these shorts and the prequels that those lines got blurred. And over the years, Dooku's morality and sense of justice becomes blurred as well. We see here that his intentions are noble, but when push comes to shove, he will act drastically and violently and against the Jedi Code. The short is called Justice, and killing the man responsible for his people's suffering is not justice. Meaningful change is justice, not death, but life. Yes, the senator must be held accountable, but Qui-Gon is able to keep his head and find the solution that keeps the most people alive and provides progress for the future. And Dooku can see the wisdom in that at this point. It's just so good. Just a 14-minute short accomplishes so much. I love seeing Dooku with his Padawan. I love seeing him as a Jedi. I love seeing him good, even if he is flawed. And I love how it connects back to a completely unrelated story about Ahsoka, because I think ultimately Dooku's fall is about fear. He is afraid the corruption in the Republic can't be removed without drastic measures. Moving into the second Dooku episode, titled Choices, he and Mace Windu are sent to Raxus Secundus to retrieve the body of a Jedi Master who was killed under suspicious circumstances. Mace wants to just do the job, get in and get out, don't exceed the Council's mandate and all that, but Dooku knows something is wrong and wants to get to the bottom of it, and he straight up says what this episode is all about, telling Mace his devotion to the rules is sometimes inspiring and sometimes maddening. There is a time and a place to follow the rules and a time and a place to break them. Dooku is trusting his instincts. He is trusting the Force that something is wrong, but the mandate of the Jedi Council is getting in his way. It's honestly similar to the situation of Cyril Karn or Dedra Meero in Andor. They know something is happening, but the red tape of their organizations won't let them investigate without going rogue. Star Wars often brings up the idea that how you choose to fight is more important than actually winning. Well, I think we could also argue that how you choose to break rules and why is at least as important as the end result. And we know that Dooku is someone that eventually goes way too far in breaking the rules of his order, and it's fitting that this part of his journey takes place on the eventual capital of the Separatist movement he will one day lead. Dooku keeps digging and digging into the Jedi Master's death, while Mace keeps suggesting they go back and let the Council choose their next move. Dooku wants the truth, and he finds it. And who knows if the Jedi Council ever would have been able to if they'd given the murderers enough time to cover their tracks. It's perfect that all of this is happening in the early days of the Separatist movement. The Raxus guards call the Jedi puppets of the Senate, and they reveal that just like Senator Dagonet, their own senator was using his power to become rich at their expense. Both senators spent all their time away from the worlds they represented. They were insulated from the actual problems their people faced, while they just enjoyed a good and comfortable life. They made decisions that benefited their own interests and couldn't even understand how it actually affected anyone back home. It's wrong. Dooku sees the hypocrisy of it all, and he tells the surviving guard as much. Dooku poses the question to Mace, asking if the Jedi can truly keep peace in the galaxy if they accept everything the Senate says as law. On 2 planets now, Dooku has experienced senators using the so-called rules to their own advantage. That should be against the rules, but Mace doesn't seem to be bugged by it as long as the Council isn't. Oh, and when they both get back to Coruscant, guess who is given a position on the Jedi Council to replace the murdered Jedi Master? Mace, the rule follower, the yes man who stuck to the mission and is willing to let the Council make decisions for him. The Council should be seeing red flags everywhere from these planets rising up against their senators, but I think they don't want to rock the boat right now. Sometimes, keeping the peace needs to be proactive, and it will be uncomfortable. I think Dooku's actions could have sustained peace in the galaxy eventually, but his choices made the Council uncomfortable, so he was overlooked. These episodes have helped me understand Dooku so much more. It feels great to be able to see some of the events that drove him to darkness to seek out other ways to evolve, as he tells the guard they all must, and that evolution continues on in the aptly titled final Dooku episode, The Sith Lord. We see right away that he is already in on the clone trooper plot as he infiltrates the Jedi archives to delete Kamino, which is super fun to see. He speaks to Jocasta Nu about Qui-Gon Jinn's encounter with a Sith Lord on Tatooine, placing this short in the midst of the Phantom Menace. He tells her having an active imagination is a quality valued less and less in the halls of the Jedi, which feels sinister knowing the timeline, but it's also true. The Jedi Council all shrug off the idea that the Sith could have possibly returned, or else they would know it. They can't imagine that reality, and then by the end of the movie at Qui-Gon's funeral, Mace and Yoda are like, oh yeah, oops, that was definitely a Sith. If they had taken Qui-Gon seriously from the start, then maybe they would have sent more Jedi back to Naboo, and maybe he wouldn't have died, which could have affected Dooku's path as well. And we get to see what's probably their final interaction together. Even knowing that Dooku is in league with Sidious at this point, I feel bad for him, knowing that he probably has tried to get the Council's attention on many matters only to be shut down over and over again. I understand his choice to find what he thinks will be help elsewhere. He all but tells Yaddle he blames the Council for Qui-Gon's death, even though he knows about Maul and knows he was Sidious's apprentice. Dooku is upset with the Sith Lord, but Sidious shrugs it off, just saying, we both lost apprentices. Maul's death means nothing to Palpatine, but we just saw a scene of Dooku thinking back to spending time with Qui-Gon as a child. He feels this loss, and in this moment, he is feeling his betrayal. The murder of Sifo Dyas, the secret clone army, all of that has been set in motion before the Phantom Menace was even over. He wants to remove the corruption in the Senate and in the galaxy, but his choices have made him more and more extreme as he felt more and more ostracized by the Jedi Order. But Yaddle offers an olive branch. Usually it's the Sith holding out their hand, saying, "Join me," but this time it's the opposite. Of course Dooku rejects her offer and ignites his blade because he thinks it's too late. And I think that's what Yoda meant when he said that the dark side would forever dominate your destiny once you start down that path. I don't think he meant you could never come back from the dark side. It's just that the dark side is easy to fall into and difficult to break out of. Like Anakin telling Luke it's too late for him, or Kylo Ren believing he can never go back to Leia. Yaddle's not saying it would be easy. Dooku would have to be held accountable, but he could have chosen to make things right in that moment. The fight itself is awesome, the gut punch of dropping the door on Yaddle is effective, and then giving her that big hell yes moment where she lifts the door back up, shining the light into the eyes of the Sith to the point where even Sidious recoils. What a moment. It's not one of ultimate victory, she collapses, but it's like she's saying, you can slam the door shut on the light, you can make everything inside dark, you can even kill me, but the light is always there on the other side if you're willing to open up to it. Unfortunately, that's not how Dooku's story goes, but like I said, I feel for this character so much more now. I think the next time I watch Revenge of the Sith, it's gonna make his death hit me a lot harder. Also, the next time I watch The Phantom Menace, and I remember that Yaddle isn't at the funeral, I would like some follow-up on her story. What did the rest of the Jedi Council do? Do they think she just quietly left the Order? Do they know she's one with the Force? Was there an investigation at all? Justice for Yaddle, please! But let's move back into Ahsoka's episodes with Practice Makes Perfect, the shortest of the bunch and the one that did the least for me. Dissatisfied with standard Padawan training, Anakin has Ahsoka defend herself against clone troopers, and she does so over and over for years. Of course, that eventually leads to her ability to defend herself against clone troopers during Order 66. She has practiced defending herself against the clones. She never attacked them in practice, and that's how she survives. And not only that, it's important to her that she and Rex not kill them. I think this does connect nicely back to Dooku's stories and his own dissatisfaction with the Jedi Order. First, remember that Anakin and Ahsoka are part of Dooku's Jedi lineage. Dooku and Qui-Gon were considered to be rather maverick Jedi. Obi-Wan not so much, but Anakin and Ahsoka were definitely more likely to do things their own way. Jocasta Nu pointed out the traits Dooku passed on to Qui-Gon, and then we saw Obi-Wan jokingly chastise Anakin for being late, and then Anakin uses the exact same line to jokingly chastise Ahsoka. Masters and apprentices always rub off on each other. Dooku wasn't happy seeing the Jedi Council doing the bare minimum protecting peace and justice across the galaxy, and now Anakin isn't happy seeing Ahsoka train against droids and only droids. Sure, that's the enemy they're currently facing, but shouldn't they be prepared for more? I think this instinct of Anakin's builds well off of Dooku's way of thinking when he was a Jedi, even if Anakin would never know that. And he reminds Ahsoka that this is about life and death, the title of the first short. And I think practice makes perfect is a good reminder that confronting fear is something that takes practice as well. Heck, doing the right thing takes practice. Ahsoka is the type of Jedi that doesn't let her fear control her, and she always wants to help others. She practices it. It's interesting that she and Dooku both wind up leaving the Jedi Order for similar reasons, losing faith in the Jedi Council and the Republic, but Ahsoka doesn't let her experiences change her, and the stakes are higher for her because she doesn't get to go be the count of some rich planet when she leaves. She has nothing. She has every reason to be afraid, and she is at times, but she doesn't let her fear control who she is. Well, maybe she does for a bit, as we see in the final short, Resolve. She travels to Naboo for Padmé's funeral, where she runs into Bail Organa. She tells him she's tired of fighting, and then I loved the scene where he covertly reminds her of their shared duty and urges her to contact him if she ever needs anything. Ahsoka goes to live on an agricultural planet for a time, just trying to find some peace, but she just can't help herself. When someone is in danger, she is going to help, and all it takes is one nosy neighbor to spill the beans, so an Inquisitor comes while Ahsoka is away and slaughters the village except for one old man and the jerk that tattled. This made me think back to the first Dooku story, where we saw that it was the senator's son who could see the way things should be. He saw how his father grew complacent in a stagnant system, but when the system is brand new and the younger character may have known nothing but war, it's the elder character that remembers how life used to be and better realizes the truth of the Empire. Ahsoka, of course, saves the Tattletale and battles the Inquisitor in an awesome scene. The music in this moment is especially great, and Ahsoka calls Bail Organa for the help he offered to relocate the survivors someplace safe. She comes to see that she cannot hide from the fight forever, and decides she's ready to join it once more. Look, we all need a self-care day every once in a while, and Ahsoka has done a lot. She earned a little vacation. This story is very similar to pieces of the Ahsoka novel by E.K. Johnston. The character names are different. I don't see this as a retcon, but I have a lot more to say about the whole thing, and I'm gonna save that for another video because it's not really relevant to these shorts or the themes. At the end of all 6, I think we can see how 2 people came to be the Jedi we have always known them to be, the people and the specific events that shaped their lives, their reasons for leaving the Jedi Order, and where they turned after they left. How good Jedi with good intentions can lose their way if they're not careful. I thought all the shorts worked pretty well together. Like I said, I liked the Dooku stuff a lot more, because he's been a much more mysterious character in the past. I feel like I learned a ton about him. You can probably tell by how much time I spent in this video on his episodes. I don't think I learned much about Ahsoka, even if I appreciate the parallels within their lives. All in all, these shorts are easily worth your time because they're not long. If anything, they left me wanting more. I would have welcomed a much deeper exploration into Dooku's life and fall, but I think I got everything I needed to see. I think I've talked long enough in this review, so I'm gonna wrap it up. I will have more videos about the shorts in the coming days, so make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And please like this video, follow us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.